Chaz Large here with another Fix It video for you, and on the bench today we've got this Panasonic DVD recorder. It's a model DMR EX75, and the customer says that basically it's pretty much stopped working properly. It powers on and does a few things. The tray comes out and it comes up with an error message on here. So let's have a little look at that. So we switch it on. I think the tray's, there we go, the tray is open. I haven't pressed anything. I can feel the hard drive there running, and on the display it says please wait. It's a pretty dim display, so you probably can't see it on there unless I cover it up. Just about make out please wait. So the reason I took the top off is because he said he thought he smelt something, and I had a look inside and I can already see that there's a couple of capacitors that have blown their top effectively. So I know that that's at least a couple of capacitors got to be done, but I just wanted to see what else happens. Just had a little click, think from the hard drive, doing a little reset, whatever. It's definitely whirring up, still saying please wait. It looks like quite a nice machine for its day. It was built with Video Plus, so it's an analog TV receiver. It's not a digital box, but he said he's got some recordings on here that he'd like to look at, but also he'd like to be able to play back DVDs with it. Why not? I mean, if we can fix it by changing some capacitors, so much the better. So it's still saying please wait, and there we are. There's an error message that says U81. Now he did supply me with his user manual. So let's go to this, and on here in the back of the user manual there is some error messages. Where are they? I didn't briefly find them. There we are, error messages, but the error message which is U81 is not mentioned. It goes U73, U88, hard error, and so on, but that U81 is not mentioned in there. So I need to get hold of a service manual for this if I can, and see if it mentions U81 in there. I'm pretty sure that if we just go ahead and change the capacitors, that may or may not fix it, but we'll see what we can do. If I can get a service manual. So let's have a look at that and just see if what I can find. Okay, so I've got the circuit diagram. It looks quite complex, but I think before I get delving into any electrical testing and whatever, certainly the capacitors that are showing signs of failure in here and on the board in different places, I'm going to replace those first. So I'll get hold of those capacitors. I've just done a brief little check against the service manual, and they're not ones that I've got in stock here, so I'm going to have to order those and get those in. So I'm going to disassemble it, get all the bits and pieces. It doesn't look too difficult to disassemble, but I probably won't even need to show that, but it's basically lots of screws to be undone, boards to be lifted out. So I'll come back to you after I've got the capacitors, and we'll put those in and see how we get on. Right, so here we are with this Panasonic DVR, two main boards that we've got faulty components on, the power supply and the main board, and finally got a little envelope with the spare parts capacitors in. Just really noticed a nice little envelope there. It says with a Lounge Girls stamp. I might cut that out and keep that because I haven't seen that one. I collect stamps as well as other things. So anyway, we've got some 470 mic at 16 volts. We've got some 680 mic at 16 volts, and we've got some 100 mic at 25 volts. So we should be able to do all the capacitors that are necessary. So what I think we'll do is we'll start off with the power supply board and get the old soldering iron going. In fact, I think what we'll do is we'll use the desoldering tool to get that going. So I'll just pause for a minute while everything warms up. Right, heat gun desoldering tool is up to temperature, so we're going to do this first capacitor. Where are we? It's this one here, which is C1707. That should be enough to get it working again. Now, some people will say, yeah, you ought to go through and change all the capacitors. Well, there's an awful lot of capacitors. Start that again. There's an awful lot of capacitors on this board, of which I don't really fancy changing all of those just for the sake of one of them might be. I'd rather see if the 4 that I've changed fix the fault. If anything else goes wrong, because I've got no circuit diagram for this, I'm going purely blindly into this. But having run my test meter over the other capacitors, they all seem to be within range. So hopefully that should be done. We can turn that beastie off and start reassembly. Right, let's get the chassis and start to put it all back together. Hey, all we've got is the cabinet screws left to fit. So, dare we give it a power up and try? Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, right, let's plug the cable in there. Switch is off. Plug it in there so we get no sparks. Triple check all the wiring is done. Power it on. Please wait. Please wait. Hard drive spinning up. Drawer open. Still saying please wait. I'll just bring the other camera in down so you can see that. And please wait. If you remember before, this is where we saw the error message before we took it all apart. Error message is still there. Gosh darn it, I thought we'd fixed it. So we're going to have to guess that probably one or more of those other capacitors has failed. But I think the first thing we need to do is get back to the manual and check for supply rails. Hoping for a quick fix with that, but not always possible. Right, well, I've got the service manual open at the power block diagram. Let's have a look at that there. And basically what we've got here is the main regulator, circuit boards, sub-regulator, and the different power connections, different power rails, and they're all available through the connector which is on the side there, P1102. So what we're going to do is to run down these connections with a test meter and see what the voltages are like. Right, got my test meter on screen there so you can see what I'm testing, and we're going to be going down this connector here. I think starting off at the power supply with this is generally the right way to go about things. So P1102 pins 16, 17 and 19 should have plus 3.8 volts. So just because my eyes are not as good as they once were, I just want to make sure I don't stab the wrong connection. So 16, 17 and 19, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and we've got 3.8 volts there, which is correct. And then pins 3, 4, 5 and 6 should all have 5.8 volts. So 1, 2, 3, and we've got 5.9 volts, so those supplies are correct. Let me just scroll down the manual. So we've got a 3.3 volt regulator there as well. And that's IC1501. That's obviously on the main board somewhere, so we need to find that. I'm sure we will. So coming back to 1102, we've got 12 volts coming out on pin 12, 13, 14 and 15. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, and there we've got 12 volts. And then the next one, I think that's all the main supply rails coming out of there. The other supply rails all appear to be on the main circuit board, which is where we had those other capacitors and so on. So I wonder where they're hidden. We're going to have to dig around on the circuit board to find those. So let me just have a quick little look on the manual and see if I can get the right positioning for these components. So what I've had to do is to do a lot of this work off camera, because it means I had to take all the bits and pieces off, as you can see, to get to the circuit board. The components I'm really interested in are actually all on the bottom side, just make sure I'm turned off, of the main circuit board around here. Show you on the wide camera. So it's all around here, which is a little bit difficult to sort of work on and balance a power supply with mains floating around. So I've had to stick a wire onto it, put it back down on the main board, and look at it, check voltages and so on. So it's a little bit difficult trying to get all that on camera, so I've had to do this off camera. But effectively what I think we've worked out is that we are losing one of the minor supply rails, a 1.8 volt supply rail, which is generated by this IC here, IC1508. And basically we've got 12 volts from the main supply comes into pin 1, and that comes across C1530, which is one of the capacitors that we changed, and it goes in there. So we've definitely got the 12 volts going in. We've got a switched line 5 volts which comes in here, which is it says RC, not sure why it says RC, but it's basically really like remote control. But basically we should have a 1.8 volts coming out of pin 8 here, and that provides a 1.8 volt rail, and that 1.8 volt rail is not there. So we've got these 2 volts going in and nothing coming out of here. So I must suspect that IC1508 has probably bit the dust, because this capacitor down here, which is a smoothing capacitor, feeding the input, if it wasn't smoothing, then whatever, the IC I think is faulty. I've checked various other things. There's a diode going across it, quite a big thick diode, that's okay, and also C1533, which was one of the other capacitors in that area, that had also failed. So it may be that if I can get this IC and replace it, that may fix it, it may not. So it's worth that, just trying that. But that's definitely where the problem is with that supply rail. That 1.8 volt supply rail comes across along on the circuit diagram. Whoops, lost track of it there. And it comes along, goes up there and goes across here, there, and we see it says D 1.8 volts, and that goes into one of the 2 connectors that goes into this circuit board here on the side. So it's supplying that, and that's where the main processor is, on that board there. So part of it is getting power, part of it isn't, which is why some of it's working. It's coming up with this error voltage, error message. So I'm going to see if I can get a hold of that IC and replace it, and if that fixes it, all well and good. If it doesn't, I think I'm going to draw a line under this, because it's just getting to a point where it's almost impossible to work on. Now there is a service mode for doing diagnostics, but you need all the thing to be working for the service mode to work. It won't go into the service mode with that 1.8 volt rail missing, apparently. Anyway, there we are. I'll be back with you after I've got hold of that IC. Fingers crossed. Right, we're here with this Panasonic, and as I said in the last bit, I was going to get an IC and fit it, and I just did all that and got it initially tested and realised I hadn't pressed start record. Oh, I must ask OBS if they can program in a little red light or something. I know they've got a red marker on there to show it's on record, but if there's some sort of interaction you can get that will operate a relay to, I can put a light on, so I know, like in a studio, you have a mic light on that tells you you're live. If I had a red light, that would tell me instead of me having to try and keep. Anyway, that's all by the by. I fixed it. It's worked. I can switch it on, and it didn't come up with any error messages. I've now got this connected to my TV up here, and if I switch to that, you will see a grand grey screen. But if I press functions, we get that. We get all the playback functions, and I can go into the hard drive. At the moment there's a hard drive, the customer's got some recordings in there, so I can click on playback and it automatically starts to play whichever bit is highlighted. So if I come down there, it should be BBC hardware. So if I skip on to the next thing, I think that's Louis Armstrong.
Musician Omnibus delves into the wonderful
so you
world
can hear
of
that
Louis
that's
Armstrong.
Obviously working. I have to mute that, otherwise we'll get a thing. But we can do that. I've also got a DVD in it. I press drive select on here and change that to DVD. And you now see it comes up with DVD on there as well. We've even got an SD card slot, but I've not got a formatted SD card. I could go through the business of putting an SD card in there, but I put an unformatted one in there and it says it wasn't recognised, so I'm pretty certain that that SD card reader is going to be working. So hopefully, did I take my DVD? The one thing I couldn't find on this remote control was an eject button. Open, close. Let's try that one. Well, I know that works because I've done it basically. Yeah, so we've got a Wallace and Gromit test disc in there, so let's close that up. But anyway, as you can see, it's now coming up with close on there. My lights are skewing it a little bit there, but you'll see that that will come up and read the DVD. So I've gone through all this already on camera, forgot to press record. Anyway, this is it, it's done. As far as I'm concerned, this recorder, DVD player, SD recorder is all working fine. All was missing was the 1.8 volt rail from that little IC. So that's the little IC there, which I can go and show you. There it is, there's the little beastie, and also quite a few, well, 4 capacitors that had all started to blow their top as well. So all the rest seem to test okay, they all look okay. So for the sake of an IC and 4 capacitors, we've now got a good working DVD stroke hard drive recorder. Although it's an analog hard drive recorder, the customer can't record any new programs unless they translate HDMI down into RF or composite video, whatever, for one of the inputs, or some other sort of input. I mean, we've got different input sockets on the front there, S-video and so on, so it's quite a nice little machine, and I'm sure it's got some extra uses, but at least he can play back his DVDs now and play back the recordings he's got on his hard drives. That's it. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. A little bit up and downy, but that's the way of life in the repair shop, or my repair shop anyway. I mean, it all looks so different on TV, doesn't it? When you watch a repair shop on there, oh, it's dong 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 and it's done. Yeah, it takes ages for a lot of repairs like this. I've just spent the best part of a week on an old Pi Hi-Fi. I'm just waiting for a couple of spare parts to fix that one off. So that's another video coming your way, and a couple of others that I've got sort of part way through editing. But the trouble is, I've got nobody to do the editing for me, so I have to do all the repair, then I have to spend time doing the editing, then I have to do all the things around the house because I'm a carer for my wife, and I have to walk the dog. So not a lot of time. Anyway, it's now 7:30 in the evening. I've had enough, I'm going for a cup of tea. Cheerio.